Hi, greetings, y'all. Sending y'all warm, positive vibrations. So this is Body Culinary, and um, today I am prepping some raw nut butter. So this is from peanuts. Some reason people call them jungle peanuts when they're raw and when they still have the skin on them. So actually, what I did with these peanuts, these are raw. I actually sprouted them first, right? And then I dry them at a very low temperature, right? And so the reason we do that is because nuts and seeds and certain things in nature have a protective covering around them, and they have what's called enzyme inhibitors, right? And that can make them very hard to digest. So it may seem like a tedious extra step, but I actually took the time to rinse them thoroughly and then sprout them, right? Which is starting the germination process, right? The process of a nut or a seed going from the seed and becoming a plant, right? The first step in that is the germination or the sprouting process. Some nuts and seeds grow tails and some don't. These don't grow a tail. So I sprouted them and then I dried them at a low temperature. Usually when people are making nut butter, they will roast and toast them, which does add nice flavor. I, however, am not going to roast and toast them because I want a lot of the nutrition in the food. And the oil or the healthy oils inside nuts and seeds are very volatile. They're very sensitive to heat and light, so you can destroy a lot of the nutrition or the good fats inside whole foods when exposed to heat and light, right? So we want to minimize the heat. So actually, if you go to the health food store, you'll notice, or to your local food co-op, shout out to the Parksville Food Co-op, quite often you'll notice that the raw nut and seed butters can be very expensive. I've seen a jar of raw nut butter here for like $32. So even though that would be about $16 US, that's still pretty pricey. So let me see, I think I showed these myself. But then when they're in season, right? So where I am in a warm environment, so a lot of times we'll get things seasonally. We have a mango season, avocado season. Right now you'll see ground nuts in season. I'm sure a lot of these things are also being exported overseas. So there's an abundance of them. So I'll get them in the shell. And sometimes when my sister and I are kicking back, chilling, we'll just shell a lot of them ourselves. So I like to say the food is talking to you when you prepare it yourself, because you get to see how the food behaves and your palate will change. You can see if anything has mold on it, it's rotten. If it has certain tastes, you learn a lot about food when you are preparing it yourself. So there are different ways to make nut butters. I've got a Vitamix, which I'm not going to use a Vitamix today. You can use a NutriBullet. With these, each one is going to be a different process, because this doesn't have a lot of surface area, so most likely you'll need to use a plunger or what they call a tamper to push it down inside so that the nuts, as the oil is released, get stuck in the wall, gets stuck up against the wall, so you'll have to stop it in the food processor or the NutriBullet, right? There are many people that add lots of oil or sweetener and or salt to their nut butter. I would rather not add all of those different things, right? I like to be, even if it's sea salt, I like to be very sparing with the salt because it can, although it has minerals, we need very little salt. Most of the sodium that we need, you can get it in broccoli and fresh tomatoes, so naturally occurring sodium rather than sodium chloride, which can have a tendency to dry the body out, right? So I'm going to take these nuts today. I'm going to use the Champion. So I'm playing around with different ways. Now, check it. I like old grinders, and for some reason, I like old kitchen tools. Like I have several mortar and pestles. I have my Grandma Lou's coconut grinder, and I got two old-fashioned grinders. I have a grinder that traditionally many Mexican folks and Mayan folks use to grind corn, and then I have another manual grinder. So I'll show you what they look like. I can get them over here. So down here. This is one. Now, some people are like, I'm not doing that. So this is one, right? And that some people call it a corn hopper. So this is one manual grinder, and this is one way you can grind the nut butter, and it comes out like this. I've tried this with sesame seeds, and I did try it with the ground nuts, and ground nuts, they call it that in Africa, or peanuts. So this is one grinder, and I like these because, I mean, call it what you, I just like to exercise sometimes, of just really playing in my food and processing my food, because I like to see how the food behaves. This is one that you can use for mice or corn and different things in nut butter, right? With it. So this is really good for children too, right? It really gives you an appreciation for your food. And then this is another one, right? This has a oiled it with coconut oil so it doesn't rust. So this is made of cast iron, not aluminum. And this has I can take this off, and there are little holes here. I was looking to make my own flax oil. So I've tried this also with flaxseed and sesame seeds. So I got a little bit of oil, so it still needs to be perfected. But the nice thing is that the nutrition in the oil stays intact. So no, you may not do this all the time. I like this. I have mechanical things that I can use, but again, it's good to know how to do things off grid without electricity. But I also find one of the most important things, it gives you such an appreciation for the food, and I know exactly what's in my food, and I can see what the food tastes like when it's unprocessed. So the only processing that's happening to the food is what I'm doing to the food myself. So those are two grinders. And this, when you're grinding lots of corn, you would put this in the top. I was talking to one of my Mayan community neighbors here at the market, and she said this, during the pandemic, there was a lot of things she missed out on when her mom started to work at the market when she was 11. And she said during the pandemic, she ground up like 20 pounds of corn. So in the Mayan culture, corn is like everything. You can find corn and as well as beans at most meals. So, but I've also seen several homesteaders, right? Folks that strive to live can their own preserves, do a lot of things self-sufficiently. I've seen several couples also use one of these to grind different grains and stuff. So if you're interested, and these are not as expensive as a $300 or $500 juicer. Plus, you can incorporate, get some children to put them to work. So, but today, I'm going to use the Champion. So I like kitchen tools. As you can see, I'm going to use the Champion juicer. This is a masticating juicer. So it has teeth. Take it apart so you can see. This is a centrifugal juicer. Actually, I like to, first of all, your teeth is the first natural juicer. But you can also juice if you only have a blender. If I had a choice between all of these things and I had to get one thing, I would probably get one of these, a Vitamix, which has a very strong motor. And I also use what's called a plant milk bag. So I'll use that to make things for my hair and for my skin. That's actually how I cleared up acne, is by eating fresh, whole, unprocessed foods from the inside primarily, and then putting those substances on my face. Doesn't have preservatives, so quite often you'll have to make things maybe like in small batches. Greetings, June. So this is a masticating juicer, so this is where the teeth are. So this is turning this way. And actually, the only thing I would ever use Crisco for is to lubricate my juicer. So some people use oil that's actually not it's too loose, but I buy a little bit of quote-unquote vegetable shortening, which we don't eat, and there's a video on this channel about it, right? These hydrogenated fats. The only thing I would use this for is to lubricate the juicer. So I would put that on here. And actually, we don't want heat to come in contact with the juicer, right? Because if you're making juice, you don't want to cook it, right? Because part of the reason for juicing is to get the enzyme. So you have all these other pieces. It might seem like it's a lot, but it's actually really not. So and also, you can this has several screens. This is a blank screen called homogenizer screen. Some people will use this with, let's say if they wanted to make soft serve ice cream instead of ice cream. So this has a screen that has holes in it, and this one is a blank homogenizer screen. All right, this has a little plunger. So I'm going to so that means the nut butter shouldn't be coming out here. So now, sometimes when you're making the nut butter in the blender or with the grinder, you may have to put it through several times because the initial first press will come out like as a powder, and you may have to run it through again. Also, most people, again, toast nuts and seeds so that they can get the oil to come to the surface. There's some nuts and seeds that have more oil, let's say like walnuts and Brazil nuts have more oil content, and so they may break down quicker when you're making nut butters. This one, being I'm not toasting it and it's raw, the oil is not going to come to the surface as quick. So I most likely will have to run it through several times. So let's see. Maybe a little noisy. Excuse me. Let's see. What happened, y'all? The thing to plug in? Uh-oh. So what happened to my juicer? There it is. And make sure you never stick your fingers down in here. Don't ever stick your fingers down in here. Like some folks are super excited, they stick their finger. Don't do that. And don't have children. You got to watch your children in here. Sometimes I would put my son, when he was smaller, on the stool next to me. Hint, hint, put him on the stool next to you and let him pass you the carrots and stuff when you're making the juicer, right? So you always want to get children involved. So let's see what happens, right? You can't be afraid to fail in the kitchen. That's how you're gonna learn, right? That's how you're gonna. So I used to sit next to my grandmother in the kitchen. So if you got an auntie, sister, friend, come on in the kitchen. I'm gonna do a little bit at a time. I'm gonna try to catch this because sometimes initially it can shoot all over the place, right? With the screen, it will come out right here when I'm making other juices or other kinds of cream. But right now, it's gonna come right out through here. Smells like planters. Now, so I'm just going to stop this for a second. So you can see the first part came out real powdery. So it's going to have quite a bit of oil in it. It's not super oily yet because it's not hot because I didn't roast them. But it serves. Now, you could stop here and you can actually put this in a container and you can sprinkle this almost like wheat germ. And this tastes really good on top of bananas. You can do bananas and strawberries and use this as a topping for different things. You can even put this on your salad. And, little tip, if you're looking to cut fat or to eat more whole, unprocessed foods, if you want to sans oil or reduce the oil, you can use like maybe a tablespoon of the ground nuts with some spices like thyme and black pepper and a little bit of sea salt and use that. And once you put vinegar or lemon on it, it will become very creamy and you can mix that into your salad. So that's a nice substitution for whole fresh fats instead of using the oil, right? So again, I can run this through several times, right? But I'm gonna still finish the first batch. Just wanna let you see what's going on here. Oh, also, if you put too many nuts in at one time, you'll hear the machine go, bam, bam. It's gonna have like feedback. So you wanna make sure you're putting a little bit of the nut, just a little bit of the nuts in at a time so it goes all the way through. It has a chance to smoothly go through the juicer. To look like more of a, I don't know if you can see there, but it's starting to look like more of a paste as opposed to a powder. More and more. So if you can see the difference, the first part was more like a grainy powder, and now it's starting to look more like a paste, more like a nut butter. Now some people add coconut oil and salt. I want to have it raw. So just because something is healthy, we can have a tendency to just be drizzling oil on like it's gravy. I grew up in the grease and oil was like gravy with spices and stuff, and it tasted good, but not really good for your arteries, right? And if you're looking to cut fat. Also, the fact that we sprouted and dried the groundnuts or the peanuts will make them much easier to digest. So one of the things that can cause a lot of gas for folks as they eat a whole lot more unprocessed foods is maybe not being as sensitive to food combinations or understanding combinations also in conjunction with their own bodies. So if you've been eating lots of let's say chips and dried snacky things, and then you go to whole fresh fruits and vegetables, that living water and those natural plant acids, you know, and the fats in them, if you have too many meals on top of each other, they will have, you want some, I'll try to save you some. You'll have chemical reactions because foods are actually natural, have natural chemicals in them. And actually, some plants, even plants that we may take for medicine, also have some toxins in them. I remember that was shocking to me to learn that years ago. But even some healthy plants have toxins. So kind of if you think of it, it actually makes sense because the plants, which also living things, and there's some people that say plants have feelings, which I don't doubt. That plants have feelings. They don't have a nervous system. They don't cry and bleed as we know it. There is a hierarchy of consumption. So cruelty-free is what I aim to do. First of all, to my own body temple and to extend that out to others. But perhaps something to consider is at least the least harm possible and to be reciprocal with composting to the planet, right? Like eat like we care, right? So, let me finish this all up. So you see, I'm not overstuffing it. I'm not overstuffing the chute with too many nuts at one time. You can see how well that's coming out. All that nut butter. So that's the first time we put it through, right? Interesting, side note. The other day I took 2 pounds of sesame seeds, right? So I'll give you a sneak peek. Yeah, we buy stuff in bulk here, right? So not packages with labels and stuff on it. So this is good trivia so you can start to recognize all of the whole foods. You have your fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds and good fats. So can y'all ID these? Y'all gotta know what this is. Anybody on this channel should know what these are. Can you recognize these? And these are organic. So this is about 1 pound. And 2 bags of this, right? 2 pounds of this gave me 1 packed jar, like a 16-ounce jar of tahini. Tahini, raw tahini is super expensive. Walnuts, which are really good for the brain. And do you recognize any of these things? Let me know in the comments if you recognize. And I'm actually going to sprout this one. Let me know if you recognize this one. And it's not millet, right? So these are things, if you participated in the workshop, whole foods preservation and preparedness, right? So you can be prepared for an emergency, and not just an emergency. Fortunately, when all these different current events have been happening, I only had to maybe add a bit more to my stock because there are lots of things that I keep stocked all year round. So that saves me on having to go out and to shop for more stuff, right? And it also will really have you get creative with the ingredients. I call it the ways of the mothers and the grandmothers, right? Knowing how to do numerous things with one recipe, right? I can put everything on my skin. You know, I can eat it. I can make a bread out of anything, a milk out of anything. I find it's like an art. All right, so That's our first pressing of nut butter. We could leave it kind of crumbly there. It's a little warm. But look for my spoon there. Let's take a little spoon. So we can stop right here, or we could run it through and we could press it through again. And again, some people put oil in it. I'm not going to use a lot of oil. I'm a person that has had a lot of acne, number one. So even though it's good fats and even with good salt, we don't want to overdo the salt and the fat, because you can still get, it may not be as severe as oxtails, right? But you can still get a case of the itis, and you'll find with your own body as you start to listen to your own body, which is definitely a practice. You'll start to notice what foods, how they digest in your body over time. You may not notice initially, but may notice over time the difference with something that's been sprouted and something that hasn't been sprouted in terms of your ease in assimilating and digestion. So it's not just about spending a whole bunch of money on food. How much of it, it's like it's not much money you make, how much you keep. How much of your food are you digesting efficiently? So I'm going to run this through again, right? So it can be a little more creamy. But again, this was 1 pound. I'm going to run it through again. See if that makes it an even creamier texture. So. Maybe I'll cut up some bananas for my sister. Now my sister's about to do her thing. She's about to, so this is getting hot, so I'm probably going to turn it off. So now the body of this juicer can get hot when it comes to things like nut butters. I don't want it to get too hot, so I'm going to let it cool off for a minute, because I don't want to cook it. But all right, ooh, now it's starting to get nice and creamy. So wow, that's a nut butter. It doesn't have the oil in it. It smells so good. So I think what I'm going to do, I could mix this with bananas, or I could mix it with, I can sprinkle this inside like chia pudding with cinnamon, or I could do something savory and I can put this, I can go pick some. Let's say that we have basil and Thai basil. Ooh. I can go take some collard greens and cut this up because I have a taste for savory. And I can cut up some greens and onions, and I have lemongrass with the peanuts and do like a peanut lemongrass sauce. And also I have some tamarind, which I can make a quick tamarind sauce. So these are all things I have. These are all unprocessed ingredients and different things, right? If you keep thinking, you can be really, really creative. So to me, it's fun. It's good quality time spent with myself. Again, now for me, I like to turn these things off a couple of minutes because my goal is I don't want to cook the food. And these motors, they have like a whatever horsepower motor. They have very strong motors. And that's a good tip. When you're buying a blender, like let's say something like the Vitamix, which is popular right now, or the Champion. I have several, so this is my favorite for juicing. First juicer though is the teeth, right there in your mouth, even if you don't have it. If you don't have a juicer. But the Champion is old school. These things are like a workhorse. These will last you like years. You can even like pass it down to your children. But there's more technology. There's a lot more technology with juices. Let's say, for example, this one is a Breville. So this is something I've used with a lot of my clients. Actually, I did a comparison on the juices. There's a video on a comparison of juices on this channel. So if I had to recommend, I've also had a Green Star juicer, which is a slow auger press, which you can also use for wheatgrass, right? And I've also had the manual wheatgrass juicer. So this one, I recommend it for a lot of clients because it's almost like having a juice bar because it sucks it down real quick, a whole apple, a whole cucumber. And the cleanup is really, really easy. So some people might get turned off by cleaning all of these parts. So I like to play in food. So this is interesting. Some of these tools I've had for many years. But there are ways to choose things that are efficient so you get the most bang for your buck. And I would have to say most of the people I've worked with over the years have exercise equipment and food prep equipment that is in their house. I call it like currency, lost currency, floating around in their house that they're not using, that you can make use of, right? That's currency. All these different tools, rather than go out. You do not have to go out and buy a whole bunch of new stuff, right? 'Cause sometimes we just like shopping for the heck of it, right? So I'm gonna run the rest of this through, of this nut butter. Let me taste it. Oh, here's the other thing. Last thing is last thing, I left the brown husk on my nut butter. You may choose to take that off. So when you first soak the nuts, you can take after they've been soaked and you rinse them several times, the water's going to get very murky. You can run it under the cold filtered water, and if you rub them, the skin will come off. But I like to keep the whole food. I want the fiber in it. So anywhere we can get lots of fiber, that's great. The good bacteria in our guts, it likes cellulose, right? We can't digest it, but good bacteria can proliferate and be happy in the presence of cellulose inside of the gut. So I'm going to see what recipes I'm going to make. I'm going to let this cool off, and I'm going to run this through one more time. Just want to bring you inside the food prep area with me as I'm playing. So I call it a whole living foods meditation, because again, perspective and narrative is everything. I find that this is good quality time with myself, and I know exactly what's in my food, and it will also train your palate. And next to my movement practice is two of the best things, the best habits that I have for myself. So if you like, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Let me know, have you made any nut butter? And I would love to hear, do you have any kinds of juicers or blenders or tools or grinders maybe that somebody passed on to you, or that you have in your house that maybe you got for a gift registry and that you're not using it? I would love to hear, and are you inspired and motivated to make use of them? So that being said, create a great rest of the day on purpose, and I will see you soon.